All right, good afternoon. In a short while, I will be bringing out Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, who will brief you as we mark today the International Day of UN Peacekeepers, ahead of its official date on May 29th. As you will have seen, the Secretary General this morning participated in a wreath-laying ceremony, and the General Assembly and the Security Council both held moments of silence in honor of our fallen peacekeepers. In his remarks today in the General Assembly, the Secretary General said that as told the member states that we must seriously reflect on the need of a new generation of peace enforcement missions and counter-terrorism operations led by our partners with a UN Security Council mandate under Chapter VII of the Charter, with guaranteed funding, namely through assessed contributions. The Secretary General also presented the Military Gender Advocate of the Year Award to Captain Cecilia Erzua of Ghana for her work in Abyei as the commander of the Ghana Engagement Platoon, a station she's had since March of 2022. In Abyei, he said, Captain Erzua saw firsthand the enormous toll of armed conflict on entire communities and especially on women, and she spared no efforts in her work to ensure that their voices were heard and reflected. A quick trip announcement for you for the Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed. She will travel to Geneva, Switzerland to brief member states on preparations for the SDG summit and the ambition of the UN development system reforms and their UN resident coordinator system reform. She will also meet with heads of UN specialized agencies and with UN officials in Geneva, building on the outcomes from the recently held UN SDG and Chief Executive Boards meeting in Nairobi. Ms. Mohammed will then travel to Lisbon, Portugal, to attend the opening session of the World Intellectual Property Organization Conference entitled Thinking About Industrial Property, Sustainability, and the Future of the Planet. She will also meet with senior government officials in Lisbon and other stakeholders. The Deputy Secretary General will be back in the office on the 31st of May. This morning, the Security Council held a session on peace and security in Africa with a focus on predictable and sustainable and flexible resources. Rosemary DiCarlo, the head of the Political Affairs and Peacebuilding Department, told Security Council members that cooperation between the African Union, the United Nations, has grown significantly in the past few years, adding that the African Union has shown its readiness to quickly deploy peace support operations in response to armed conflicts on the continent. The African Union operations should be considered as part of the range of responses to crises in Africa, alongside with established UN mechanisms, she said. As such, the case for adequately financed AU-led peace support operations is beyond solid. Ms. DiCarlo added that we are hopeful the Security Council will agree to provide its backing, including allowing access to UN-assessed contributions. As the Secretary General has stated, she concluded, concrete action on this long-standing issue will address a critical gap in the international peace and security architecture and bolster the efforts of the African Union to tackle peace and security challenges on the continent. Today is also, what day is it today? Africa Day, yes, very good. In his message, the Secretary General said Africa's dynamism is unstoppable, its potential is breathtaking, from the vibrancy of its huge number of young people to the possibilities of free trade. He also urged the international community to stand with Africa, saying that historic and economic injustice hamper its progress. The Secretary General said the UN will continue to be a proud partner in advancing peace, sustainable development, and human rights for the people of Africa. His statement was shared with you. A couple of updates from the continent. First, in Sudan, the humanitarian community there is mobilizing to reach as many people as it can while the ceasefire is in place and respected in parts where it is in place and respected. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that some 20 trucks carrying supplies from UNICEF, the International Organization for Migration, are now on their way to different parts of Sudan today. The World Food Programme, for its part, has reached more than 500,000 people in 9 states with food and nutrition support since restarting distribution about 3 weeks ago. WFP is also planning distributions in central Darfur, northern state. Yesterday, trucks loaded with food aid arrived in Wadi Halfa, and today they arrived in Port Sudan. WFP started providing food to some 4,000 new arrivals. According to various UN agencies, and I just wanted to highlight the impact that the ongoing fighting is having on the humanitarian situation. According to UN agencies, 6 newborn babies died at a hospital in the city of El Adin in East Darfur in just 1 week recently due to the problems, including lack of oxygen amid electricity blackouts, as we've been telling you. WHO reports that more than 30 newborns have died at the hospital since the start of the fighting. The organization is in touch with healthcare providers to see what it can do to support. Some updates from South Sudan. The humanitarian coordinator ad interim there, Peter van der Auwert, condemned a new attack on humanitarian supplies that took place in Jonglei State. On May 23rd, a group of armed individuals on motorbikes attacked 5 trucks that were carrying 100 tons of food supplies from the WFP just outside of the UN compound in Bor in South Sudan's central region. Nearly 7 tons of food were looted during the attack. Following this new incident, and for the 3rd time this year, WFP has no choice but to put a pause on its operations in that area. This will impact more than 1 million people in the Jonglei and Pibor area who rely on food from the World Food Program. It's estimated that 9.4 million people, that's 76% of the population in South Sudan, will need some sort of humanitarian assistance this year. A quick update from Mr. Batili, our special representative in Libya. Yesterday, he co-chaired, along with Turkey in Tripoli, a plenary session of the Security Working Group of the Berlin Process International Follow-up Committee on Libya. That's the name of the committee. That session included the participation of the Joint 5+5 Military Commission and other relevant Libyan interlocutors. This is for the first time the Security Working Group meets inside of Libya itself, which is good. Participants continued discussions on advancing the security track, implementing the ceasefire agreement, including reunification of military institutions and withdrawal of foreign fighters and mercenaries. Mr. Batili emphasized the importance of future meetings of the Security Working Group taking place in different regions of Libya to continue advancing overall political process to create a conducive environment for holding free and inclusive elections this year. An update from the occupied Palestinian territory. The acting humanitarian coordinator there, Yvonne Hele, today warned of repeated demolitions, settlement expansion, and settler violence following the dismantlement of a Palestinian herding community in the West Bank. On the 22nd of May, the Palestinian herding community of Ain Samia, which is close to Ramallah, which is home to 178 people, began dismantling and leaving their homes. They cited settler violence as the main reason. Several communities have been displaced in similar circumstances. We and our partners are assessing their needs and will continue to provide them with assistance. Today is the International Week of Solidarity with the peoples of non-self-governing territory, and it kicks off today. In these territories, people have not yet attained full measure of self-government. Today, the 17 non-self-governing territories remain under purview of the Special Committee on Decolonization. We've been calling on the international community to find practical ways to implement the decolonization process. Senior personnel appointment today, the Secretary General, along with the World Food Program Executive Director, Cindy McCain, and the Food and Agriculture Organization Director General, Mr. Q Dong-yu, are appointing Carl Skau of Sweden as WFP's Deputy Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer to serve at the Assistant Secretary General level. Most of you will remember Carl from his role here as Ambassador and Deputy Representative to the UN for Sweden and Deputy Representative to the European Union Political and Security Committee in Brussels. And he brings over 20 years of experience, and we congratulate and welcome Carl. And before I finish with our quiz, This will be a good one today. I have a statement on the arrest of a Rwandan national. The Secretary General welcomes the arrest of Fulgence Kayishema in South Africa, who has been sought since 2001 for allegedly committing genocide and crimes against humanity in Rwanda in 1994, following a warrant for his arrest by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. Mr. Kayishema's apprehension sends a powerful message that those who are alleged to have committed such crimes cannot evade justice and will eventually be held accountable, even more than a quarter century later. The Secretary General commends the cooperation between the International Residual Mechanism for the Criminal Tribunals and the South African authorities for the arrest of Mr. Kayishema. He further calls that all states have an obligation to cooperate with the mechanism in the location, arrest, detention, surrender, and transfer of accused persons still at large. The Secretary General's thoughts today are first and foremost with the victims of Mr. Kayishema's alleged crimes, the victims of other serious international crimes and their families. Ending impunity is essential for peace and security and justice. There is also a statement from Serge Brametz, the chief prosecutor, who said that of the residual tribunal, who says the arrest ensures that Mr. Kayishema will finally face justice for his alleged crimes, adding that the investigations that led to his arrest was made possible with the cooperation support of South Africa and the operational task team established by President Ramaphosa to assist the tribunal's own fugitive tracking team. Finally, we are up to 110 member states paid up in full. This is a quiz from Benno is still on probation. This is from our stand-in quizmeister, David Hunter. In 1976, Bob Dylan wrote a beautiful song about this Portuguese-speaking country in Africa. Mozambique, exactly. Mozambique. So we say thank you very much for our friends in Maputo for paying their dues in full. Okay, Celia, please, with your microphone. Thank you.
Talking about war criminal, why not arrested Kagame, who is still killing a lot of people in DRC and who is behind the genocide in Rwanda?
I can only speak to people who are under the warrant of various international mechanisms, and I think we've expressed our concern about the ongoing violence in the eastern DRC. Benno.
Thank you, Steph. I have a quite specific German question, so bear with me 30 seconds. The German police carried out a nationwide raid yesterday against a German climate protest group called Last Generation. They got some attention because they glued themselves on the streets and in museums, for example. Now the police raided 17 properties in Germany, and the police is investigating for them to founding and supporting a criminal organization. Does the Secretary General think this action of the German authorities is appropriate towards climate protesters?
Look, I don't have the details of the operation. What I can tell you is that obviously governments have a responsibility to uphold the law and uphold security. People also have a fundamental right to demonstrate peacefully, to have their voices heard. And it is clear that a lot of the progress that we have seen on awareness on climate change and positive movement on climate change is due to the fact that people have been demonstrating peacefully throughout the world.
And would you say gluing your hands to the street is still an acceptable measure, or is that going too far?
I'm not gonna grade. Not gonna go down that road with you. I'll just stick to my principles. Michelle, then Evelyn.
Thank you, Stéphane. Just wanted to follow up on the Black Sea grain deal and the comments you made, I think, earlier this week, about one of the ports sort of effectively being cut out of the deal. Has there been any progress on resuming shipments?
No, I spoke to one of my colleagues in Istanbul a short while ago. There's been no change. There've been no movements to that third port. We do expect a a more comprehensive update from the JCC tomorrow. So I'll have more details for you tomorrow.
Okay, and can you give us any indication on who is preventing
Well, I mean,
these
as you know,
ships?
every ship movement has to be approved by consensus.
Do you know why? No
I
ships?
think you'd have to ask the various parties sitting around the table.
Well, the UN is at the
I know,
table.
but we are not a signatory. We are trying to facilitate everything. Evelyn.
Right, on the AU functioning, who decides when they would receive a contribution?
Well, I mean, I think the point that we're making is that the African Union is stepping up to the plate in armed conflicts in the continent, whether it's in Somalia or through different configuration, the G5 Sahel force. The Secretary General's point is that these security forces need a strong Security Council mandate under Chapter 7, and most importantly, they need strong and predictable funding through assessed contributions. And the fact that that's not happening is hampering their ability to work.
Right, and on South Sudan, you have any idea who attacked?
No, but whoever is responsible, whatever criminal gangs or others are responsible, their actions have led to people not getting food. It's pretty clear. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Stéphane. French authorities started the police operation on the Mayotte to expel the people which they consider as illegal Comoran immigrants. So will the Secretary General react to this kind of developments? Thank you.
Look, we're very much aware that the issue of migration and is high on the agenda of the bilateral relations between Comores and France. We're confident that both France and the governments in the Comores will resolve this issue through dialogue and within the existing bilateral frameworks between the two countries. Our push and our urging is that both Comores and France ensure that the issue of migration is identified, the issue of migration as it's identified in the joint declaration, I think that was signed in 2018, is resolved in accordance, and this is very important for us, that all this needs to be done in accordance with relevant international human rights instruments, as well as the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. And I'd say, as important, if not most importantly, that the dignity and the rights of every man, woman, and child involved who is being impacted is respected. Okay, I don't see any questions online, but I do see one in the room for Michel, and then I will get Mr. Lacroix.
No.
It's not even Friday, Michel.
No, it's been a long week. The IAEA chief, is Rafael Grossi, is going to brief the council on Tuesday afternoon. There was a suggestion that he might be presenting some sort of agreement between Russia and Ukraine on protecting Zaporizhzhia power plant. Are you aware, or is the Secretary General aware of any agreement that's been reached on that?
No, I mean we're aware of the IAEA's activities. I think we will have to wait for official briefing by Mr. Grossi to the Security Council. Okay, stand by.